Hello and welcome to today's video. We are finally putting 2020 behind us, so it's time to count down my favorite movies of the previous year. Welcome once again, my name's Austin, and this channel is all about digging deeper and going further to better understand faith and film and everything that's in between. If that sounds exciting to you, make sure to click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any new content. Now this past year has been odd, to say the least, but I still managed to check out 30 new releases that came out in the year 2020, and I will say at the beginning of the year I was hesitant that I was actually going to see 10 movies. They just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and my list just dwindled of what I was looking forward to. So I'm thankful that I was able to check out as much as I was, and I'm excited to share my list with you. Now before I share mine, make sure you comment your favorite movies in the comments down below. First, kicking off my top 10 list, we have a Netflix original movie that is The Call. Now this movie was a very nice surprise. I found out about it through watching a top 10 Netflix movies of the year video and immediately wanted to check it out. It is a really unique thriller. It tells the story of a young woman who moves into a house and begins receiving calls from another woman in the same house. But the catch is, they're from 20 years apart. One is in the present and one is 20 years in the past. And the calls that ensue between them will change their lives forever. Both main character performances were great. I loved the chemistry and the dynamic between the two of them and how it progressed throughout the film. If you've not heard of this one, I highly recommend checking it out. For me, it was definitely one of the biggest surprises of the year. Next, coming in at 9th, we actually have another movie that is a Netflix original. And this is one that when it was initially released, I did want to check it out and I was interested. But then I got watching other stuff and just didn't think it was going to happen. But I was like, you know what? I need to make sure I check this one out because it's making a lot of people's top 10 lists. So that is The Trial of the Chicago 7. Now this is a really cool one because I knew next to nothing. I mean, I basically knew nothing going into this movie. It was really cool to kind of be exposed to that for the first time and be able to kind of follow along with the story in that kind of way. I loved the story that took place. The characters were absolutely great. All of the cast did a phenomenal job in my opinion. Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Mark Rylance were definitely the standouts for me, and I'm glad I took the time to check this one out because it ended up cracking my top 10 list in 9th place. Next, coming in 8th place, we have a Pixar movie. It is the first one and not the only one that you're going to see on this list. Pixar had a phenomenal year. This was one that I absolutely adored. Not only does it have a good story, a great cast, good music, but it challenges you to look at the movie itself from a different perspective when you reach the end. And not only that, I think it challenges us to look at our life in a different way. And being a Christian, though it wasn't from any religious perspective, I feel like the movie was very spiritual in how it asks you to kind of look at yourself, look at your life, the decisions that you make, all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciated that as well. I also really respected how adult the themes were in this movie. A lot of people said, like, you know, this is barely a kid's movie. The kids will enjoy it, but to truly get something out of it, you kind of have to have some life on your shoulders that you've dealt with things. And I love that Pixar does a great job in all of their movies, entertaining kids and still doing great stuff for adults too. And this is definitely top tier Pixar for me. All of their movies are great. They can basically do no wrong. And Soul came in on my top 10 list in 8th place. And next we have another movie that I put off making this video until I could watch it because I had a good feeling it was going to make my top 10 list. It's one I've been wanting to watch ever since it came out earlier this year, and that is Ben Affleck's The Way Back. Now, this was one that I was very excited to check out because Warrior is one of my favorite sports drama movies, and I was really excited to see what both Ben Affleck and the director would do after their previous kind of work together in The Accountant. And I have to say, this is absolutely hands down one of the best performances I've seen from Ben Affleck. I couldn't stop looking at his eyes in his performance. And that, I think, is one of the strongest elements of his performance in this film. I could see so much pain and truth in his eyes. You can tell how raw and honest he was in his performance. Obviously, as many people know, he struggles with alcoholism outside of this film as well as in real life, and so you can definitely see the really hands-on and real authentic approach that he took to this character and the role, and the movie is one of my favorites of the year and came in 7th place for my list. Wrapping up the bottom half of my top 10, we have the other Pixar movie that came out this year, Onward. Now, this movie totally hit almost every note for me. I love the fantasy, fantastical elements that it brought. I'm a huge fan of that genre. Obviously, the animation is great, but biggest thing for me was the brotherly relationship between the two main characters. I have a very good, close relationship with my brother, so this really hit me in the feels, and I loved seeing the brotherly relationship and kind of how it starts, how it develops, and where it wraps up at the end of this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Not everyone loved this movie probably as much as I did, but because of my own experiences in life and my relationship with my brother, this hit really good for me. Next, coming into the final 5, we have a movie that I really wanted to put on this list, and almost kind of put it towards the bottom half, just because it's not a movie I feel like I'm going to revisit all that often, but I just appreciated, respected, and loved it so much. And that is The Sound of Metal. This is a movie that was released by Amazon this year on Amazon Prime, and the one that I checked out pretty much right after it released, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and loved it. Like I said, the story is heavy, so it's not one I'm going to revisit all that often. That part of my top 10 list and just favorite movies really is a big chunk of how much I enjoy movies, how often I want to revisit and rewatch it. But I don't want the fact that I'm not going to rewatch a movie that often to detract from how good it is. This movie is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of my highest rated movies of the year. If I was going purely based on just like objectively ranking these movies, it would probably be higher on this list because the sound design is incredibly immaculate when it comes to the story that we are focused on. We focus on Riz Ahmed's character who suddenly goes deaf, and it's him coping with that and trying to adjust to his new version of his reality. And it's absolutely phenomenal. Riz Ahmed's performance is one of the best of the year in my opinion, and as I mentioned, the sound design is incredible, the supporting cast is great. It's a movie I will continue to look on so highly in the years to come, and like I said, it's not one I revisit too often, but there's no denying the masterful crafting that came together in the result of this movie. Next, in 4th place, we have a movie that I actually did not know was coming out this year, which is kind of surprising because I'm a huge fan of the last movie this writer and director made. The movie I'm referring to is Run. This ended up being released as a Hulu original. It was going to come out in theaters, but with everything that happened this year, Hulu picked it up and put it out. And the story is so cool that I won't spoil really anything here for people who haven't seen it yet, but it's basically this girl who is handicapped in a wheelchair, and she starts to suspect that her mother has been lying to her about some things, and a lot of stuff comes to surface. It's really cool, really well done. The main cast is great. Sarah Paulson is excellent as the mother, and the name escapes me at the moment, but the actress who played the daughter main character is phenomenal. She's actually in a wheelchair in real life, so you can really feel all of the things that she's conveying, the things that she does throughout the movie. They're great, and I love this movie. I can't wait to see what this director continues to do. We are almost there. We're in our top 3 now. Before I give you my final 3 favorite movies of the year, if you want to check out kind of how I ranked all 30 movies that were newly released that I watched this year, I will link to my Letterboxd list in the comments down below so you can check that out and you can kind of see each of my individual reviews there if you'd like to as well. So moving into our 3rd spot for my 3rd favorite movie of the year, we have Palm Springs. This has been on nearly everyone's top 10 list in one ranking or another. And there's no denying that this movie is perfect for the year 2020 as well, just helping us to kind of cope with the repetitive monotony that was most of 2020 that we all kind of emotionally went through, and this movie kind of helps us to laugh it off. The movie tells kind of a Groundhog-esque story of 2 people who are trapped in the same day trying to escape. And in the end, it even leaves you with a lot to think about. The performances are great, the script is hilarious, the acting was a ton of fun, so if this is one you've not checked out, I highly recommend it. As I said, you can watch it on Hulu. Next, we have a movie that as I'm showing my wife this video, she's going to roll her eyes and say, "Are you kidding me?" The Invisible Man is my 2nd favorite movie of the year. This is one of the last movies I got to see in the theater for the year. I went with a buddy of mine and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great theatrical experience. Kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Then when it came out, I was like convinced my wife would love this movie. So I showed it to her and she thought it was awful. And I was extremely mad and she still gets me fired up about it to this day. So this movie's incredible. I love it. The fact that they made this movie for like $11 million, the fact that it looks great, the performances are great, the story is really cool. It could have easily just fallen into the tropiness that is usually found amongst this genre, but I think they were able to stay above it. It's a really cool modernization of the story of The Invisible Man. It has a lot to say kind of in its social themes with abusive relationships and all that kind of entails, and at the same time it delivers really good thrills, nothing cheap. There's tons of constantly building tension that's really good, and it's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I also think it's a great kind of entry-level horror movie because it's a little bit more of like a drama thriller, but if it's someone who's kind of iffy about horror, this is a great one to show them in my opinion. And I don't care what my wife says, this is my second favorite movie of the year. Finally, coming in first place for my favorite movie of 2020, we have Trolls World Tour. I thought this was a great follow-up. No, I didn't. It was bad. It was my least favorite movie of the year. I'm just kidding. Coming in first place, we have Christopher Nolan's Tenet. If you know me, you know I'm a huge Nolan fan, and I was very thoroughly ecstatic to check this one out. I loved the end result. It may not be the best Christopher Nolan movie, but all Christopher Nolan's movies are thoroughly entertaining, and this definitely ranks in the top half of Nolan movies for me. Without a doubt, this is Nolan's most complex movie, and I loved that it continues to keep you guessing all throughout. Obviously, you're not gonna get everything on the first viewing. I can't wait to check this one out for a second and third and fourth time. I haven't picked up the movie yet for myself. I'm planning to do that soon, but this is a movie that rewards multiple viewings as you will understand the complexities of it more. So I'm really excited. I really appreciate when a movie doesn't try to give you everything in its first viewing, when it requires you to kind of look at it closer and check it out through multiple viewings, analyze it, that kind of thing. All throughout this movie with the action scenes, I was constantly thinking, how did they do this? It was amazing set pieces, great action scenes. Both Robert Pattinson and John David Washington were great in the main cast. Elizabeth Debicki and Kenneth Branagh were also great in their respective roles, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was definitely my favorite movie of 2020. That officially wraps up the strange year that we have had, and those are my 10 favorite movies of 2020. If you enjoyed it, make sure you comment your picks down below. I'd love to hear what some of your favorites are. Also, now next week we're going to be talking about the 10 most anticipated movies we have for this year, 2021. Fingers crossed we can actually get all of the movies on this list and all the movies that are scheduled to come out. So hopefully the world can put itself back together and we get to check those out. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I'm really excited for the year that we have ahead and all that it'll mean for the channel. I'll see you in the next one.